Today on Amazing Dinosaurs, we are checking out Jurassic World Dino Trackers and Roar Attack Collection. I've got some new ones over here as well. Let's get started with the Dino Trackers because those are the newest figures. This first one is the Diabloceratops. It's got some crazy horns in the front and some unique dark red coloring. Plus it has an action button on its back to move its head back and forth. This is from the Gigantic Tracker series. This is the Stegosaurus. It's got some pretty bright coloring all over its body. You can see there's all sorts of little specks of different color in there as well. And it comes with this awesome Dino Tracker backpack. And it has two action buttons. One swings the tail up and down, and the other swings the tail back and forth. Next up is another gigantic tracker. This is the Sinotyrannus. It's got a dark green body with some red detailing on its tail, on its neck, and on its head. It comes with these interesting binocular light type of things. And it has two action buttons on its back. One moves its head, and the other moves its tail. Next up is the Track and Attack Endoraptor. This is one of the newest Endoraptors released. If you pull on its arms, it moves its head. And it has a button on its back to open its mouth. Check out that awesome reflective blue coloring too. Here we've got the Dinosaurs from the Dino Trackers series. This figure is mostly darker in colors, but it does have tons of spikes along its body. And it has a dual action button on its back that you can use to move its head back and forth. This is the Cretaceous from the Dino Trackers series. It is an aquatic dinosaur, so it's got 4 fins. And this figure also has the dual action button on its back to move its head back and forth. And next up for the Dino Trackers, we have the Austroraptor figure. So this figure is in the same family as a Velociraptor, but you can see it has a much longer and narrower snout. And on this figure, you can adjust the tail, the legs, the arms, the neck, and the mouth. Alright, let's check out this new Dino Trackers set that I'm adding to my collection. This is the Search and Smash Truck set. Let's first check out this Atrociraptor. It's about the same size as some of the other mini Atrociraptor figures that I have. It's got some pretty unique coloring though. It's got some bright red-orange coloring along the front, while the rest of its body is a soft tan color with a little bit of black on the top. And this set actually comes with a tracker that you can put right on to the Atrociraptor. Check that out, it's pretty cool. This set also comes with a soldier who's got a brown vest and also a weapon. And the biggest part of all is this Jeep. And it has a special feature where you can press down on the hood and it'll actually capsize. And next up from the Dino Trackers is the Dilophosaurus. This figure's got some soft blue coloring with some green detailing, and it's got a real mean looking face. Alright, moving on to the Roar Attack series, we've got the Baryonyx Chaos figure. This figure has some bright blue detailing along the top of its head, and a slide lever action for the sound effects and chomping action. Here is our first Allosaurus figure. This figure has the brown body with the blue detailing along the top. It's got some little spikes running down its spine, and it's got the slide lever action on its back for the roaring and sound effects. Next up from Roar Attack is this Ceratosaurus figure. It's a bit smaller than the Allosaurus figure. It's got the red and black coloring along the top, and of course the slide lever action for the chomping and the roar sound effects. This next figure is actually a Mega Destroyer figure. This is the Carcharodontosaurus. It's got an action button right on its back for the chomping. And you can move its arms, its legs, and its tail too. Here's another Mega Destroyer Carcharodontosaurus. It's pretty much the same aside from this awesome coloring. It's got the blue and the orange and brown, and of course the action button on its back for chomping. Here is the next Roar Attack Allosaurus. This one has the dark green, white, and red. You can move its arms, its legs, and its tail, and it has the slide lever button on its back to activate the sound effects. Here is another Mega Destroyer. This is the Pentaceratops, and this figure is quite large. It's got the soft brown body with the gray detailing and 2 action buttons. The first moves its head up and down, and the second swivels its entire torso back and forth. And these are probably some of the largest horns that I've seen. This is the Roar Attack Kentrosaurus. It's got spikes all over its body, but the coolest part are these huge spikes coming right out of the side. And you can actually swing those spikes back and forth using this slide lever action. This is the Mega Destroyer Stegosaurus figure with the camouflage green, tan, and brown coloring. And it's got the hidden action button that you can press to swing its entire torso and its tail back and forth. And those are some pretty long spikes too. This is the Ceratosaurus figure with the dark green and black coloring. It's got the tiny little horn on its head, and there's a slide lever action for the chomping and sound effects. This one's an interesting looking dinosaur. This is the Oranosaurus from Roar Attack. It's got a huge spine running along its back and a slide lever action on its side to move the head up and down. This next figure is Ankylosaurus Bumpy. It's got the huge shell on its back, the spikes coming off the side, and a slide lever action to swing its tail back and forth. And last of all, we've got Baryonyx Limbo in the green, dark green, and brown coloring. You can move its arms, its legs, and its tail, and you can use the slide lever action to open and close its mouth. Welcome to the Amazing Dinosaurs channel. Today we are checking out all of my Jurassic World Dominion dinosaur figures. Let's get started with this classic ginormous T-Rex figure. This Dominion T-Rex has a dark brown body with the black along the top. It's got the barcode scanner right on its back right there. And it's got a pretty thick neck and a pretty big head compared to a lot of the other T-Rex figures. It's got some evil yellow looking eyes. It's got a mouthful of teeth, plus the mouth actually has a throat, so you can actually fit some miniature dinosaurs in there. It doesn't have a stomach compartment, but as you can see, you could probably fit a few small dinosaurs in there. And the coolest feature of this figure is that it's got a button on its tail to activate the jaw, and you can move the tail to swing the torso around too. So it makes it look really lifelike. Next up, we've got a Megaraptor figure. This is one of my newest figures that I bought fairly recently. It's pretty awesome. It's got those huge claws in the front. It's got a red and a dark blue body. It's got some feathering detailing along its back and along its head, as well as some white detailing right along its face. It's got the barcode scanner right on its back. You can twist the tail. The tail also has some cool looking feathers, which is pretty unique. And you can adjust the arms and legs of this figure. Plus, there is a chomping action when you press down on its body. Got some sound effects too. That's pretty cool. This, I believe, is the Majungasaurus figure. This dinosaur has a lighter underbelly, a dark green side, and the brown detailing along the top. It's got some cool ridges right along its head, as well as the super tall orange ridge right on the top of its head. And you can move the arms and legs of this figure, as well as swivel the tail around to control the neck. And with this figure, you can actually adjust the standing pose by moving its legs. See how it leans down when you adjust the legs? That's a pretty cool feature. Not that many other figures that I have work like that. And of course, it's got the button on its tail to activate the jaw. This wild looking dinosaur is the Ichthyovenator. This dinosaur has a dark green body along its underside and on its sides, and it's got the super bright green detailing right along its spine and on its tail too. This is a pretty unique tail. This dinosaur has a long snout with a bunch of teeth inside. And the best part is that this dinosaur has an action when you press down on its body. It does a chomping action. Here we've got a ginormous Allosaurus figure, but not only that, this is an extreme battle damage Allosaurus. I think it's the only one I have that is a battle damage edition. This Allosaurus is almost as big as most of the T-Rex figures I have, which is unusual for an Allosaurus figure. And it's pretty adjustable. You can swivel the tail all around, you can move the legs and the arms, and there's a button on its back to activate the jaw too. But the coolest part is the extreme battle damage on its side. You can hide it completely, and then you can spring it open, it's spring-loaded, and you can even lift up the ribs to check out the insides underneath. I think that's its stomach right there, and it's pretty squishy. That is really cool. And you can close it up and hide it. This is the Atrociraptor figure from Jurassic World Dominion. It's got the dark red eyes and the brown striping, which is actually very similar to this super colossal Atrociraptor that I have back here. Look at that, they're pretty similar. On this little figure, its mouth is closed and you can't open it. But on this super colossal figure, it is a lot more adjustable. It has those same dark red eyes, the striping all along its body, and this super colossal figure has the stomach compartment, so you can actually feed this huge figure smaller dinosaurs. This is the Rajasaurus figure in the dark blue edition. As you can see, most of its body is that dark blue-gray color. It's got some white detailing along its neck, on its arms, and on its chin. It's got some big old spines right along the top of its neck, and this figure actually has a chomping action when you press down on its body. I've noticed that they're doing this chomping action for a lot of the new Jurassic World Dominion figures. And I've actually got another Rajasaurus figure with different coloring here. This one is dark brown along its body and undersides, and it's got the dark blue just along the top and along those spines right there. It's got the horn on the top of its head and that same chomping action when you press down on its body. Moving along, we've got the Sound Surge T-Rex figure. This figure is a lot smaller than most of the T-Rex figures I have, but you can swivel the tail around, you can move the legs and the arm, and you can open and close the jaw manually. You'll see that the tongue and lower teeth are not colored though, which is kind of a bummer, but it still has a cool feature that when you press down on the button, you get some T-Rex sound effects. Speaking of T-Rexes, I've got this huge super colossal T-Rex figure from Jurassic World Dominion. This figure is ginormous. Check it out. It has similar coloring as the first T-Rex that we saw in this video, but it has some cool features as well. Since it's a super colossal T-Rex, it has the stomach compartment, so you can feed this dinosaur smaller dinosaurs down its throat all the way to the stomach. And that is pretty cool. Next up, we've got a Giganotosaurus figure. I believe this is the Strike and Roar figure. It comes with two awesome functions. The first swings its torso and its head around for that chomping action. And the second button on the bottom of its tail opens and closes the jaw for roaring. That's pretty cool. That's some pretty wild movement. Over here in the corner, you may have already noticed, I've got another Giganotosaurus figure. This one is the Super Colossal Edition, and it is huge, just like the other Super Colossal figures. It's got the dark green body with black detailing. It's got the huge jaw with some really pointy long teeth. And since it's a Super Colossal figure, it has the stomach compartment for feeding smaller dinosaurs. Next, I've even got some brand new figures that we're gonna open up on camera. This one was a bit damaged in shipping, as you can see. This is the Velociraptor Blue and Atrociraptor pack. Let's check it out. Here is the Atrociraptor Blue pack. You can move its neck up and down, you can open and close its jaw, as well as move its arms and its legs. And here is the super bright orange and white Atrociraptor. And this Atrociraptor has the same movements as Velociraptor Blue. You can move the neck up and down, you can open and close the jaw, and move the arms and legs too. And it's got the barcode scanner right at the top of its back too. This is the Sound Surge Carnotaurus figure. It's pretty basic in design and not a ton of coloring. It's like almost completely red. It's got a little bit of white underneath its chin, and like the other Sound Surge figures, its tongue and its lower teeth are not colored, which is a bit of a bummer. But let's check out those sound effects that you can activate by pressing this button on its back. Here is the basic Pyroraptor figure. This figure is a dark red color with some black along its tail and its legs, as well as some black detailing right along its face too. And on this figure, you can only move its arms, its legs, and its tail a little bit. Speaking of Pyroraptor, I've got this ultimate uncaged Pyroraptor. Let's open it up and check it out. Here is the uncaged Pyroraptor, and this figure is huge. This Pyroraptor has sensors all over its face and on its chin, so you actually can do quite a bit with this figure. There's a training mode, there's a play mode, there's a wild mode. So let's check it out and see what kind of sound effects it comes with. Wow, that's pretty cool. I think it's in wild mode right now, because it's roaring a lot at me. All right, now its eyes turn blue. Let's see what happens when I touch those sensors. Wow, there's so much you can do with this thing. You can even train this Pyroraptor, which it's not obeying me right now, so it's obviously not trained right now, but that's pretty cool. I could spend a lot of time on this figure. You gotta check it out for yourself. Over here, we've got the Rowdy Roars Atrociraptor figure. This figure is also battery operated. Let's see what happens when you tap the top of its head. So it's got some sound effects, and it can open and close its jaw too. That's pretty neat. Over here, we've also got the Rowdy Roars Dilophosaurus figure. This one is also battery operated. So let's check that out. And let's see what sound effects this one can make too. That's pretty cool. Here is another Giganotosaurus figure. This is the Sound Surge edition. So it's a bit smaller than many of the other Giganotosaurus figures. And it's fairly adjustable. You can open and close the jaw, and move the arms, the legs, and the tail. And of course, it's got the sound effects too. This is the Extreme Damage Dimetrodon. It has a light green body and the super bright spine on its back. And it's got the battle damage right on its side that you can turn on and turn off with the click of a button. Here is a smaller Carnotaurus figure. This one is dark green and orange, and it is pretty adjustable. You can move the neck, you can open and close the jaw, and you can move all the limbs as well. We've got a couple small Atrociraptor figures in here. Here is the classic white with brown striping Atrociraptor. And over here, we've got a light tan Atrociraptor with brown striping that's in a crawling pose. That's pretty cool. Next up, we've got an extreme battle damage Velociraptor. This Velociraptor has a white underbelly and sides with the dark blue on top, and the extreme battle damage right on the side that you can turn on and off. And this final dinosaur is an extreme battle damage Coelurus. It has the dark green body with the red legs, tail, and head, and it's got the extreme battle damage just like the Velociraptor that you can turn on and off. Welcome back to the Amazing Dinosaurs channel. Today we're checking out not just one, but 2 bins of Jurassic World figures. There are 100 Jurassic World figures in here. Let's get started with this bin on the right. First up is this hybrid Indominus Rex figure. Even got sound effects too. Plus, there's spikes that come out on its back too. This is an extreme battle damage orange Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's got the battle damage all over its body, and there's an action at the top of its head to activate the jaw. Next up is the Stomp and Escape T-Rex. This T-Rex has a button on its back for the jaws, and you can use the tail for a stomping action. Here's another Indominus Rex figure. This one has a rubber neck while the rest of its body is a hard plastic, and you can use the arms to open and close the jaws. Over here, we've got a Terran T-Rex. This T-Rex is pretty cool because it has a button that activates the tearing action with its mouth. Look at that. That's pretty intense. And there's another button on its back to activate the tail. Over here, we've got a really cool Spinosaurus figure. This figure is pretty big, and it's got some awesome coloring and detailing all over its body. And like many of the other large figures, it has a button on the top of its head to activate the jaw. This, I believe, is called the Ciats Microrarum. It's got an orange and blue body with some gray detailing as well. It's got tons of spikes on its head, and you can use the tail to control the mouth and the neck. This is an orange Velociraptor. It's a pretty basic figure, so you can only move the arms, the legs, and the tail, but it's pretty large and still pretty cool. Here is a huge Allosaurus figure. This has the classic coloring for many of the Allosaurus figures, and best of all, it's got battle damage right on the side that you can open and close. This is a T-Rex figure, but with some cool coloring. It's got the red and the black spots all over its body, and the light underbelly as well. Plus, it's got an action button on its back to activate the jaw. Here's a similar T-Rex of the same size, but with totally different coloring, and actually, this one is a hybrid T-Rex because it has spines that pop out of its back, just like that. Next up is a Carcharodontosaurus figure. This figure is medium sized and it has one action button on its back to activate the chomping action. This is an Albertosaurus figure. It's got the dark green body with orange detailing, and you can use the tail to control the head and jaw on this figure. Here is a medium-sized Velociraptor figure. It's a lot bigger than many of the Velociraptor figures that I have, and I actually have a few other that are very similar to it as well. Check these out. They're all around the same size and have many of the same features. This one is a light tan with green stripes. This one's darker colored. And this one actually has some battle damage on its side that you can press. I believe this dinosaur is a Pachycephalosaurus. It's got a dark purple coloring with some detailing along the top and an action button with its tail for the headbutting. Next up, we've got a smaller Indominus Rex figure with battle damage on the side that you can open and close. That's pretty cool. Plus, you can use the tail to control the head on this figure too. Next up, I believe this is the Dinosaurus figure. It's got the dark blue body with some different coloring all throughout. It's got those huge horns in the front and two action buttons. One to lift up its head and one to swing its tail. This is a huge Pteranodon figure. It's pretty basic because it can't do a whole lot, but it has some pretty cool coloring on the wings. You can move the wings up and down, as well as open and close the mouth. I've got another winged dinosaur here, but I'm actually not sure what type of dinosaur this is, so let me know in the comments below. This big dinosaur, I believe, is called an Amargosaurus. It's got two huge ridges on its neck that go all the way down its back to its tail, and it has two action buttons, one to operate the neck and one to operate the tail. Here's another huge Velociraptor figure. This one is actually Velociraptor Blue. It's got these stripes down its side, and you can move the arms, the legs, and the tail on this figure. This is the basic Scorpius Rex figure. It's got the poisonous quills on its tail, and you can move the arms and legs on this figure too. Next up is the Pentaceratops figure. This figure is pretty close to a Triceratops, but it's got a huge frill on the front and a ton more horns too. You can use the action button to lift up its neck and to swing its torso around too. Here's a couple more medium-sized Velociraptor figures. This first one is a dark green with black stripes, and this other one is a lot brighter, and it actually has battle damage on its side as well. That's pretty cool. Plus, with this figure, you can use the tail to open and close the jaw. Here is a Triceratops figure with the clay red coloring and the brown on the top, and it's got one action button to lift up the head. This next figure, I believe, is the Spinosaurus. Also looks quite a bit like a Triceratops as well, but again, some big differences in the front. And with this figure, you can use the tail to control the head. Next up is the giant Quetzalcoatlus dinosaur. This winged dinosaur is from the new Jurassic World Dominion movie and has a few action buttons on it. The first action button you can press to flap its wings, and the second button activates its jaw. Here's a Dimetrodon figure with the light blue-gray coloring on the sides and the giant red spine on top. Check out these smaller dinosaurs. I think these are both called Proceratops. We've got one with the purple coloring and a little bit of yellow. The other one is light green with also some yellow coloring as well. This is a dark green and light green Sauropelta with those huge spikes coming out of its back. Here is a smaller carnivore dinosaur. This is a Herrerasaurus, and it's got an action button with its tail that opens and closes its jaw. Here is a Styracosaurus figure. It's got those two super bright circles right on the front and tons of horns around its head too. Here is the Shringosaurus figure. It's pretty odd looking. It's got the yellow body with the brown detailing on top and a super long neck and some horns at the very top. This is the Miragaia figure. It's got a dark body with some lighter coloring in the back and those two giant horns sticking out of its back too. Here's a smaller Triceratops figure with battle damage right on the side that you can open and close. This is a Stygimoloch figure with the dark brown coloring on the sides and some darker detailing along the top, plus an action button to activate the headbutting action. This is a Parasaurolophus figure. This is a newer one, I think from Jurassic World Dominion. It's got the light tan body with some darker detailing right along the top. Here's another Pachycephalosaurus figure with a light tan body and the darker coloring along the top, and the action button on its tail to activate the headbutting. This is a baby Brachiosaurus figure. You can move the neck up and down as well as move the legs and open and close the jaw too. And here are two Gallimimus figures, one with a dark green coloring and one with the light tan and brown coloring along the top. We've got one more bin to go, but before we do, let's check out these brand new ones that I just bought, including this giant Dreadnoughtus figure. Let's open this one up first. All right, here is the Dreadnoughtus fully assembled. It's actually really hard to show even the whole thing on camera because it is so long. This neck is a lot longer than a Brachiosaurus, I think. Let's check out the head first. You can open and close its mouth. And you can move the neck back and forth. See that swivel right there? You can adjust the legs. And you can even move the tail back and forth too. This figure is ginormous, and it has some pretty cool coloring along the top and the sides as well. This next figure, I think, is pronounced the Rugops Primus figure. It's from the Ferocious Pack of Jurassic World Dominion. This is a pretty cool looking figure. It's got the dark green body with the black tail and the black detailing around its head. And you can move the legs, the arms, the neck, and the head as well. Next up is the Jurassic World Herrerasaurus figure. This figure has a lighter green body with some teal blue coloring along the top, while its face is that dark green color too. You can open and close the jaws manually, and you can move all the other limbs as well. Next is the Jurassic World Legacy Collection, Dr. Ian Malcolm. Here is Dr. Ian Malcolm with his fiery torch, and it also came with this small dinosaur. I can't remember the name of this dinosaur, but it's a pretty cool set. And next, we've got the Camp Cretaceous Soundstrike Pteranodon. All right, let's unfold those wings. This is a pretty big dinosaur. It's probably a foot long from wingtip to wingtip, and it's got a few action buttons as well. The first one you can press to flap its wings and get some sound effects. And the second button activates its jaw. Now let's dig into this second bin. First off, we've got an Indominus Rex figure. This figure is huge and has the classic gray coloring that you can see in the movies. Over here is another Pteranodon figure, but this one I believe is from the Amber collection. So it's got rubbery wings and a whole lot more detail too. This is another huge Spinosaurus figure. This one has the green body with the light underbelly, but it's still got the red spine and the red detailing around its face too. In the back here, we've got a T-Rex figure with the camouflage coloring. That's pretty cool. And this T-Rex has two actions. You can pull up on its tail for a chomping action, or you can pull down on the tail for a roaring action. Here is a T-Rex figure from the first Jurassic World movie. It's got a rubbery tail and a chomping action when you lift up its body. Here's another T-Rex figure with the gray and brown coloring on its body. It's very adjustable with its neck and its legs and its arms, and there's the button at the top of its head for chomping and roaring. This is a Carcharodontosaurus figure with the blue coloring on the sides and the brighter detailing along its back. And it's got an action button on its back for the chomping. Next is a Stegosaurus figure with the gray-blue body and the lighter underbelly. And this figure has an action button that when you press down right here, it swings its tail back and forth. Watch out for those spikes. This is an Allosaurus figure with a slide lever action on the top, so you can get a bunch of different sound effects and different roaring poses too. Here is a Suchomimus figure with the blue body and the yellow detailing along the top. And this figure has one action button for the chomping. Here's one of my favorite dinosaurs, the Carnotaurus. This figure has the red coloring on the side and the dark purple on top with an action button to activate the jaw and the neck. This, I believe, is another Spinosaurus figure. It's got the light green body with some yellow detailing on its tail and on the front as well. And when you press down on the back of this figure, it lifts its head up. This is another Allosaurus figure with different coloring. It's got the gray body with the yellow detailing. You can move all of its limbs, and it has an action button on its back to activate the jaw. This is a Ceratosaurus figure with the gray coloring on the bottom and some brown and red all the way up to the top of its face. Here is one of my largest Indoraptor figures. This figure has a few different actions. First, there's a button on its tail to activate the arms. You can use the tail to swivel the torso around, and there's a button on the bottom of the tail to activate the jaw. Next up, we've got a huge Dilophosaurus figure with the bright red coloring and the even brighter frills in the front. This is a pretty basic figure though, so you can't do too much with it. You can move the arms and legs and the tail a little bit. Here is the Iguanodon figure from Jurassic World Dominion. It's got the light tan body with some lighter striping along the top. And when you press down on this Iguanodon, it lifts its head up and down. Next up is a Cryolophosaurus figure. This figure has some darker coloring along its body. It's also got some brighter red detailing all the way up to the crown on the top of its head. And you can use the tail to swing the neck back and forth too. Way over here, I believe this dinosaur is called the Kentrosaurus. It looks kind of like a Stegosaurus, but it's got these huge spikes coming out of its side. And this figure has a slide lever action on its back to swing those spikes back and forth. Here is a Triceratops figure in the brown and blue coloring. Plus, you can use the tail on this dinosaur to control the neck. Alright, we've got a Baryonyx figure in here. This one has the light brown and the dark gray-blue coloring. And there's an action button on its back to activate its jaws. We've got another Baryonyx figure in here, but this one is super bright. It's got the bright green coloring along its side and bottom, and the brown along the top, plus that action button to activate its jaw too. Here's a pretty rare dinosaur. This is the Edmontosaurus. It's got some pretty cool coloring along its body, and you can use the tail to control the neck. Next up, we've got a Velociraptor from the Amber collection. This one is the bright orange and brown Velociraptor, and it is super posable. Here is an older Ankylosaurus figure. This one is actually a hybrid, and it has special armor plating that you can take on and off. Plus, it has an action button that when you move this leg, it swings its tail back and forth and moves its head too. I've got a few mini T-Rex figures in here. These are also older figures from the first Jurassic World movie. They're both pretty identical, but with different coloring, and they both have the action where you can move its jaw and its neck by moving the tail around. Looks like I've got some more Velociraptor figures in here. Check out this one. This one is dark blue, but it has the yellow and gold coloring along the top of its head. I've also got these green Velociraptors too. This one is in the sneaking pose, and this one has some really cool detailing along the top of its body. These two figures are both Dilophosaurus figures. This one is the newer figure and is a bit smaller, but it does have an action button on its tail to activate the frills and open the jaw in the front, which is pretty cool. And this older Dilophosaurus figure, I believe from the first Jurassic World movie, it's a bit bigger, has battle damage on the side, and you can use the tail to move its neck. Here's another Stegosaurus figure. This one has the brown, tan, and green coloring, and it also has an action button that when you press down right here, it swings its tail back and forth. Looks like I've got 3 more Ankylosaurus figures, all with different coloring. This first one is brown and has the green and gray coloring on the top, plus with an action button to swing its tail. This next Ankylosaurus has the clay red underside with the tan and brown on top. And this third Ankylosaurus has the yellow coloring on the bottom with the green and gray on top, and a slide lever action to swing the tail back and forth. Here is another Dilophosaurus figure from the first Jurassic World movie, and this figure is super bright. Plus, it has the action on its tail to move its neck up and down. Here's another giant Stegosaurus figure. This one has a softer green-blue coloring, and it has the action button that you press down to swing its tail back and forth. Here's another Stegosaurus figure, but this one has the gray, brown, tan, and green coloring all over its body. And this one actually has 2 action buttons. The first one moves its head up and down, and the second one swings the tail back and forth. This is a Parasaurolophus figure with the light yellow coloring and the brown stripes, and it's got 2 action buttons. The first moves its head up and down, and the second swings its tail back and forth. We've got some more Velociraptor and Atrociraptor figures in here. First, we've got another Velociraptor blue figure. We've also got this purple and red Velociraptor. And we've got 2 Atrociraptor figures as well. We've got one that's tan and in the crawling pose, and we've got a bright orange-red one with the white striping. Next up, we've got a Sauropelta figure in the clay red color that can swing back and forth, so you better watch out for those spikes. We've also got this Moros Intrepidus figure with the light green coloring and the orange on its tail too. Here's another small Indominus Rex figure. This one also has the battle damage on its side, and you can use the tail to control its jaw and its neck too. This is another Stygimoloch figure. This one does not have any action buttons, but you can move its legs, its arms, and its head around too. And here is also another baby Brachiosaurus figure. This one though has the gray and purple coloring right along the top. And last of all is this Herrerasaurus figure with the dark blue coloring and the lighter detailing on its back and all the way up to its head too. Today I'm showing you all of my T-Rex figures from biggest to smallest, so let's jump in. My first biggest T-Rex is this super colossal T-Rex from Jurassic World. This T-Rex has a bright orange body with a darker brown top. And just like all my super colossal figures, it can swallow miniature dinosaurs down its throat to the stomach compartment that you can open it up. My next biggest T-Rex is this super colossal Jurassic Park T-Rex. This is actually from Jurassic World Dominion. It has a much darker body. It's got black on top, brown on the sides, and a lighter underbelly. It's got a huge jaw, and this figure can also swallow miniature dinosaurs and open them up in the stomach compartment. Next up, we've got a Jurassic Park T-Rex. I believe this T-Rex was called the Bull T-Rex. And this figure too can swallow miniature dinosaurs and other small stuff, and you can empty it out in the stomach compartment. Right on top here, we've got the Hammond Collection Tyrannosaurus Rex. This figure has some of the coolest coloring out of all the T-Rexes that I have. And it is remarkably adjustable too. You can bend the legs in all different directions, at the knees, at the ankles. You can bend the arms, you can twist the neck, and you can open the mouth, of course. Next, I've got this huge Jurassic World T-Rex with this ginormous head. This figure has the black top and brown sides, just like the super colossal T-Rex from Jurassic World Dominion. And this T-Rex can be controlled by moving the tail around. Back here, we've got, I believe, what is called the Terran T-Rex or something like that. The special feature on this T-Rex is the tearing action with its mouth. It swings its head around and closes it at the same time. And it's got a secondary action button to swing the tail around too. This T-Rex, also from Jurassic World, is a stompin' T-Rex. When you twist the tail, it stomps its legs up and down. And it has those cool sound effects too. Plus, as you notice with the cage, it actually breaks free from the cage just by pressing the button on its back. That is pretty cool. Here we've got another Jurassic Park T-Rex. So this is a very old figure. It's got the rubber body. And with this T-Rex figure, you can move the tail to swing the head back and forth. So it's not as advanced as the new Jurassic World T-Rexes, but it's still pretty cool. We've got tons more T-Rexes to go. Let's keep digging. This huge T-Rex with similar coloring as the first super colossal T-Rex that we saw has some pretty cool functions. When you swing the tail, it swings its head back and forth, and it has a roar function when you move the tail, and a chomping action. All just by moving the tail. That is pretty cool. Over here, we've got a darker gray colored T-Rex with some brown on the top. This is also by Jurassic World. And you can twist the neck around, you can open the jaw, there's a button on top, activate the chomping, and you can swivel the tail around and move the legs as well. I think this one's bigger than the rest of them. This T-Rex has one of my favorite functions. It's actually battery operated, so that when you press the button on its tail, it opens its mouth and shakes. It actually has a motor in it to do that, which is pretty cool. Plus, you can move the tail around to swing its neck around to look. That's really cool. This T-Rex was custom colored a long time ago. It's got the bright green on the side, and it's got like camo colors and black all over the rest of its body with the lighter underbelly. And just like that bright orange T-Rex we saw just a second ago, you can control chomping and roaring with this figure just by moving the tail around. Next up, we've got a light brown T-Rex from Jurassic World. This is very similar in function to the darker gray figure that we just saw. It has the chomping button on the top of its head. You can move its neck around, and you can adjust the rest of its body parts too. This is the extreme battle damage T-Rex from Jurassic World. It's got some different patterning along the top of its body compared to the rest of them, but the most important part is the battle damage on both sides that you can press this button up top to turn it on and off. Plus, the rest of the figure is very adjustable as well. Here's another T-Rex with some battle damage on it. It doesn't have the extreme battle damage on the side that you can turn on and off, but it does have these slashes all over its body, even its legs and its tail too. The rest of the figure is very adjustable, and of course, the button at the top of the head for chomping. Next up, we've got another custom colored T-Rex. This one is a super bright red color. It looks kind of like fire in my opinion, and it's got the black on the top and the orange striping right along the sides. And this figure is adjustable just like many of the other figures that I've shown so far too. Next up, we've got another bright orange T-Rex with the brown top. This figure is fully adjustable throughout its body, and it's got the chomp button at the top of its head. Here's one of my favorite T-Rexes. This is a dark green color, and I'm not sure that I have any other green colored T-Rexes in my collection, so this one's pretty special to me. It's also got the black detailing along the top, and its body is fully adjustable with the legs, tail, arms, and neck, and there's the button at the top of its head for chomping. Let's keep going. We still got quite a few T-Rexes to go. This T-Rex is from the old Jurassic World toy line. It's got a rubberized neck, so it's a bit flexible there, as well as the rubberized tail. And it has a chomping action with the tail. Now we're getting down to some slightly smaller T-Rex figures. This is a Jurassic World T-Rex, and it is actually a hybrid. It's got some spikes on the top of its head that you can push down and activate them by pressing the button on its back. Here is another custom colored T-Rex from the old Jurassic World toy line. It is bright red in color with black spots all over and the yellow underbelly. And it also has a chomping action on its back. Here's another similar T-Rex from the old Jurassic World toy line. This T-Rex is light tan in color all over its body. It's a little bit lighter on its belly. And just like the other two that we just saw, it has the chomping action button on its back. All right, this next T-Rex is a little bit smaller. This is a Jurassic Park T-Rex. I believe it's a juvenile T-Rex, and it's actually got some battle damage right on the side. Next up, we've got a new Jurassic World Dominion figure. This, I believe, is the Sound Surge T-Rex. It's pretty small in size, and you have to open and close its jaw manually, but it does come with some awesome sound effects. And we've got some model T-Rexes in here. I'm not sure what brand this is from, and you can't move any of the limbs or the jaw on this figure, but it's got the dark brown coloring. It's got some interesting shading and black stripes all over its body. Here is another dark brown model T-Rex, but on this one you can open and close its jaw. It's also got the black stripes and the lighter underbelly too. Check out that little bit of yellow right there on its nose. It's interesting. Here is a dark green model T-Rex. This one you cannot move any of its body parts, so it is standing in this awesome roaring pose, just like I'm sure you've seen in the movies. Here is a bright orange or red model T-Rex. With this figure you can open and close the jaw, check out all those little teeth, and this figure looks quite a bit more muscular than a lot of the T-Rexes, I will say. Here is a super bright model T-Rex. It's got the bright blue along the top of its body, as well as the gold stripes. It's got a gray underbelly and some teal coloring right along its face. Here is a darker model T-Rex. I love the attention to detail with the skin. It's like you can see all these little bumps all over its body. It's got the black stripes as well, and on this model you can open and close its mouth. Here is a super striped T-Rex. This has some really bold black stripes right along the top of its body, while the rest of its body is this soft tan or orange color. And it's got some super bright yellow eyes too. And unfortunately, you cannot move any of the body parts on this model. Next up, we've got a light green colored T-Rex with some darker shading and detailing along its body. You can see those bumps right along its spine. And this figure does not have any moving parts either, so it is stuck in this roaring pose. We've got some even smaller T-Rexes in here. Here is a Jurassic World T-Rex that is pretty small. It's probably 7 inches from tail to the nose, and it fits easily in my hand. It's got some battle damage on the side, and the tail controls the jaw and face. We've actually got a few more Jurassic World T-Rexes just like that last one. This first one is actually a hybrid T-Rex. It is a hybrid with a Dilophosaurus, as you can tell by these huge frills on the front. It's still got the battle damage on the side, and it's got this reflective gold along the top of its body and the very front too. And this T-Rex has a bright green body. It's got the battle damage on the side still, and some darker detailing right along its face. This T-Rex figure is from Jurassic Park, so this is a super old figure. It's got some interesting purple detailing along the top. It's got a tan body, and actually, this figure has a unique feature on the leg. You can actually bend it like that, because it is a broken leg for this T-Rex. Right over here, we've got another juvenile T-Rex. This one has a bandage on its leg and the restraint on its mouth, so it can't bite people. It is super bright green with some cool detailing along the back and is very adjustable with all of its limbs too. This baby T-Rex is also from Jurassic World. It is bright green or yellow in color with some detailing along the top, and when you pull down on the tail, it chomps its jaws shut. All right, we've got some super small T-Rexes in here. I believe this one is from Jurassic World. I'm not sure, actually. but they are both brown in color. This one is very adjustable. You can even move the tail around, you can move the legs and open and close the jaw. But this figure doesn't have any moving parts actually. And our last two T-Rexes of this collection from biggest to smallest. We've got a bright blue T-Rex with black stripes and no movable body parts. And this T-Rex here can move the legs, you can twist the tail around, and you can open and close the jaw too. Today we're checking out a collection of Jurassic World figures with the coolest special features. Some of them have extreme battle damage, some of them have really cool attacks, and a whole lot more. Let's start it off with this gigantic Giganotosaurus figure. This is one of the largest Giganotosauruses that I currently have. And this figure has some really cool attack features. First is with this button on the top that swings its entire torso back and forth. There's also a button on the bottom of its tail to activate just the jaw by itself. Next, this T-Rex has one of my favorite special features. It actually can break free from its cage that's around its face. By pressing the button on its back, it breaks free and roars at the same time. That is super cool. This dinosaur is our first extreme battle damage dinosaur. This is an Allosaurus and it is part of the Jurassic World Dominion series. You can check out that huge battle damage on the side that you can open up to reveal what's underneath and close it up all the way as well. This is a really cool and huge figure. Next, we've got a really interesting T-Rex figure right here. This one is all disassembled. You can see all the insides of this Tyrannosaurus Rex. You can see the muscle of its tail, you can see the intestines, and you can actually lift it up to show even more underneath. Plus, you can actually reassemble it so it looks like a normal T-Rex. I think the legs and the tail are in this bin somewhere, so we'll probably see them in a little bit. Let's check out this other giant T-Rex figure right here. This is camouflage custom colored. And I really like this figure because of the attack features. You can use its tail for a chomping action, chomps downward, or you can lift the tail down and it lifts its head up for a roar. That is super cool, and I think these features make it look really lifelike. Next up, we've got the extreme battle damage Indominus Rex, and it looks like he's chomping on a little Spinosaurus figure. That's pretty cool. But let's check out that extreme battle damage on the side. You can turn it on and turn it off just with the click of a button. Plus, there's a button on its tail for chomping and roaring. This Indominus Rex's arms are huge as well, and check out the size of those claws. Over here, we've got an Albertosaurus figure with extreme battle damage on the side. Plus, it's got some on its skin as well. And just like the Allosaurus that we saw earlier, you can flip down the rib cage, you can see the stomach underneath, or you can close it all completely and hide the battle damage entirely. Next up, we've got a Scorpius Rex figure, and this has some really cool attack features. The first button on its back activates the jaw with sound effects, which is pretty cool, but it also has a second button for the claw slashing action, which I think is really cool. And that's not all. The tail is actually spring-loaded, so you can swing it back and forth to hit other dinosaurs with that poisonous quills. The next special featured dinosaur is this giant Pentaceratops figure. And just like the T-Rex that we saw earlier, it can break free from its cage by pressing a button on its back. Let's check that out. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go! Wow, that is so cool. And there's also a second button to swivel its torso back and forth too. Up next, I've actually just bought this new one to show in this video. This is the Jurassic World Dominion Extreme Damage Atrociraptor. I have quite a few other dinosaurs from this series, so I'm super excited to add a new Atrociraptor to them. So let's check out this battle damage on the side. Check that out. You can reveal it just by the click of a button, and it shows on both sides. Next, we've got another giant T-Rex figure with extreme battle damage on both sides, just like the Atrociraptor that we just saw. You can click it on and off. It's really cool, plus the rest of its body is fully posable. You can even open its mouth all the way for a giant roar. Up next, we've got an unusual looking dinosaur. This is an Ankylosaurus, and this one has a pretty cool moving feature that's really lifelike, I think. You can use its tail to move its neck around to look in all different directions, plus there's a button to even open and close its jaw too. So this feature gives this dinosaur some super lifelike movements. Next, we've got a giant Endoraptor figure. This figure has the classic coloring for an Endoraptor. You can use the tail to move the neck and the head around, and even some of the torso too. And there's two buttons on its tail. The first one moves its arms, and the second button at the bottom of its tail opens and closes its jaw. So you can use all three of these all together to make it look really lifelike. Here is a new Spinosaurus from the Jurassic World Dominion movie. This dinosaur has some really cool coloring, but the special feature is when you press down on its body, it lifts its head up, and it has a ton of sound effects too. Right over here, we've got the Jurassic World Dominion Extreme Battle Damage T-Rex. So this figure is similar to the T-Rex that we saw earlier with the battle damage on its side that you can turn on and off on both sides, but it has entirely different coloring. It's a lot more orange, and it has some gray on the top as well. Next, looks like we've got a Pteranodon figure. This figure is ginormous. It's probably a foot from wingtip to wingtip, and it has two special feature buttons on its back. As you can hear, the first one activates the sound effects and also flaps its wings. And the second button in the front activates its jaw and more sound effects too. I really like how big this figure is, plus you can get some real lifelike wing flapping too. Over here, we've got another Pteranodon figure, but this one is actually from the Hammond collection. And the special feature of this dinosaur is that it is a soft, rubbery texture, as opposed to a hard plastic like many of the figures. So this figure is really posable, especially because of that rubber feeling that makes it feel like a real wing would. All right, here are our missing T-Rex parts. So let's actually go ahead and put them on to our T-Rex right here. All right, well, it looks like I'm missing a few pieces here still, but you eventually would be able to reassemble it to make it look entirely like a healthy T-Rex. Next up, we've got the Tyrannosaurus figure. And the special feature on this dinosaur is this slide lever action that moves its neck and gives a ton of different sound effects. Up next, I've got a little baby Triceratops with the battle damage that you can open and close on the side. Here's also a small Herrerasaurus figure with that same opening and closing battle damage on the side. This, I think, is the first Velociraptor of this bin, and the special feature on this dinosaur is the side-to-side slashing action. It is spring-loaded, so you can twist it, and it swings way back and forth. Here's another Herrerasaurus figure, but this figure does not have battle damage, but rather you can use the tail to open and close the mouth. And for how small the figure is, that's a pretty cool feature. And here we've got another Velociraptor figure, but this one has the extreme battle damage on the side that you can turn on and off. And it shows up on both sides too. Today, I'm going to be showing you my collection of Stegosaurus, Dilophosaurus, and Baryonyx figures, and putting them up on this empty space on my shelf. I've even got a brand new set to unbox, but first of all, I want to show you something I've never shown before. This is a vintage Jurassic Park Dilophosaurus statue. It's got a huge frill, and it's even got some plants at the base of it too. This is really cool, super old, and I'm going to put this right here on this top shelf. Let's go ahead and dig into the rest of my Dilophosaurus figures. This first one is the basic red Dilophosaurus. You can actually open and close the frills, and it's got a huge yellow crown on the top of its head. So let's put this Dilophosaurus right over here on the Dilophosaurus shelf. Next up, I've got another basic but giant Dilophosaurus figure. This one is the teal green blue coloring with the bright red frills in the front and the bright red crown on the very top. Let's go ahead and put this next to my other giant basic Dilophosaurus figure. It's looking good already. Let's see what other Dilophosaurus figures I have in here. This one is another vintage figure. This is a Dilophosaurus without the frills, which I think is pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and set this one down on the shelf as well. Right over here, we've got a miniature Dilophosaurus figure with bright yellow and red frills, and it's got the green body as well. That's really cool. It's pretty small, but you can still open and close the frills too. And let's set this down right next to the other one. Next up is a gray Dilophosaurus with red and white on its frills. And this Dilophosaurus actually has an action that when you pull up on the tail, it'll open its mouth and open its frills too. Let's go ahead and set down this Dilophosaurus too. Next up is a bright purple Dilophosaurus with red, yellow, orange all over its frills and some red on its body as well. This figure is a little bit bigger, but it doesn't have any action buttons to activate the jaws or the frills. Let's see if we can fit this Dilophosaurus right in between the two large ones. Perfect. Right over here, we've got a green, orange, and yellow Dilophosaurus, and this one actually has the lever action that'll open its mouth and its frills. Look how fast that is too, that's really cool. Let's set this Dilophosaurus down right on the end here. Two more Dilophosauruses to go. Here is a dark green and black one, and it's got super bright red on its frills. And this figure is actually one of the new Jurassic World Dominion Dilophosauruses. So this is probably one of my most recent Dilophosaurus figures. And our last Dilophosaurus is another mini green Dilophosaurus, but this one has brown on its back, and it's got red and yellow on its frills too. This is looking great so far. All right, let's move on to the Stegosauruses. But first, let's actually open up this brand new Jurassic World set. This is the Dr. Sarah Harding and Stegosaurus pack. And the box is even designed to look like a truck, which is really cool. Alright, so this set comes with 3 figures. It's first got the giant Stegosaurus figure with some pretty unique coloring. I don't have one with this coloring yet. It's also got a baby Stegosaurus right there, and of course, Dr. Sarah Harding on the side. Let's check out the giant Stegosaurus first. So it looks about the same as many of the other Stegosaurus figures, but it has this clay red coloring on the top, and then the green on the sides, and then a brown underbelly, which is really cool. And like many of the Stegosaurus figures, it has an action that when you press down here, it swings its tail back and forth. Next up is the baby Stegosaurus figure. It has similar coloring as the adult. It's got the green on the sides and the brown underbelly and the red on top, but is a whole lot smaller. And look at that, even the spikes on its tail are a lot smaller too. That's pretty cute. And here is Dr. Sarah Harding. She's even got a camera wrapped around her neck as well. It's pretty cool, taking photos of the Stegosauruses.
Bingo!
Let's put Dr. Harding and the baby Stegosaurus right next to the Dilophosaurus figures. This is where our Stegosaurus domain will start. And let's put the adult Stegosaurus right next to them. Look how big this Stegosaurus is in comparison to this baby Stegosaurus. All right, let's get the rest of these Stegosauruses up here. This first one is a vintage Jurassic Park Stegosaurus with a huge battle damage on its shoulder. And it's even got some similar coloring as to the Stegosauruses that I just opened up as well. So why don't we put this one right next to that one. Moving right along, we've got a light blue and green Stegosaurus figure. It's got some pretty good detailing on its side. It's got the darker green on the top And this figure also has the action that swings its tail back and forth. Well, it looks like we're out of room on this shelf, so why don't we move down to this other shelf that I cleared out to make space. Right here, we've got a dark gray blue Stegosaurus with a light pink underbelly. It's totally different coloring, but this figure also has that same action that when you press down on its back, it swings its tail back and forth. 2 more Stegosauruses to go. Here is a green, brown, and tan Stegosaurus, and this one has a slightly different action. It still swings with its tail, but it actually swings its entire back torso, so it's different from the other Stegosaurus figures. So it's a pretty cool feature. Let's set this down right next to these other Stegosauruses. And here is the final Stegosaurus. It's got a light underbelly with brown on the sides and tan and green on the top. That is different from all the other ones that I have up here still. So let's set this one down right here at the end of the line. All right, that's all my Stegosauruses. Now, it's time for the final dinosaur, the Baryonyx figures. Let's start with this one right up front here. This is a battle damage Baryonyx with the brown and dark gray blue coloring on the top. Let's set this Baryonyx down right next to the Stegosauruses, and the rest of this shelf will be for only the Baryonyxes. Let's see what we've got next. Here is another battle damage Baryonyx. This one is actually the same as this one, so we're gonna put it in the back right here. Next up, we've got a bright green and brown Baryonyx, and of course it's got a button on its back to activate the jaw. Let's put this down right here on our Baryonyx shelf. Here is another Baryonyx figure, but this one has lighter green coloring, and it has only one shade of brown on its head. Plus, this figure has a slide lever action to activate the jaw and sound effects. Let's put this figure down right next to our other green Baryonyx. We've got another dark green Baryonyx figure here. This one is, I think, the same as the first green Baryonyx. So we're just gonna put this down in the back here. Next up, we've got a gray, dark blue, and light blue Baryonyx with the slide lever action on its back. So you can get a ton of different sound effects. This is the first gray Baryonyx figure on the shelf, so we're gonna put it right up front here. Here is the Hammond Collection Baryonyx. So this one has a bit more detailing and a whole lot more points of articulation on its body. This one is superposable. I really like this one, so why don't we put this on the front of the shelf as well. And this is our final large Baryonyx of the bin. This one has some super bright blue reflective paint on the top of its head, which I think is a really cool detail. And let's set this big Baryonyx down in the back here. And our last 2 Baryonyxes of the bin are these vintage Jurassic Park Baryonyx figures. These ones are totally different from the new Baryonyx figures that Mattel is releasing now. Look how different in size they are, but I'm gonna place this one right up front here. And let's grab our other vintage Jurassic Park Baryonyx and place it down right in front next to the other old Jurassic Park Baryonyx. And that is it. My new shelf displays are complete. I've got the Dilophosauruses, Stegosauruses, and finally the Baryonyxes.
Welcome back to the Amazing Dinosaurs channel. Today we're going to be checking out some of Jurassic World's most popular dinosaurs. I've got 2 whole shelves here set up with some of those popular dinosaurs. So let's get started at the bottom over here with some of these super colossal figures. This first one is actually the Jurassic World Dominion Super Colossal T-Rex. It's got the darker body with the brown and black detailing and the yellow eyes. It's pretty cool. Right next to it, we've got the Atrociraptor figure. This figure is a little bit smaller than the T-Rex, but it has some of that cool striping that you can see in the movie. And right next to it, we've actually got the super colossal Velociraptor Blue with the iconic blue stripe and the light green body too. That's pretty cool. And look at all those teeth too. Right next to Velociraptor Blue, we've got Carnotaurus Toro. Check out that battle damage right there on the nose. That's really cool. And it's got the two huge horns on its head and the iconic brown and clay red coloring on its body. Over here on the next lower shelf, I've got all T-Rexes. T-Rexes are obviously some of the most popular Jurassic World figures. This first one is a light blue-gray color. It's got some red eyes and a huge set of teeth. There's also this orange T-Rex right here that I believe came out during the Fallen Kingdom movie, and it's just as big as this one. I've also got a camo super colossal T-Rex. This one's a bit older, so it is more fragile, but it also has some battle damage on its side as well. And then the last super colossal T-Rex that I have on this shelf is this awesome Fire T-Rex. Check out that coloring that it has on it and those creepy white eyes too. That is so cool. Moving up a level, let's see what other figures I have in my most popular collection. I've got some Atrociraptor figures right here. I've got an orange one, I've got this tan crawling one, I've got two white and brown striped ones right there, and this one is actually a custom colored one that I did pretty recently. You should go check out the video where I painted it if you haven't seen it yet. Next up, we've got some classic Stegosaurus figures of varying colors. I've got a teal one, I've got a green one, and I've got a gray-blue one set up on this shelf right now. And they all look pretty similar in design and their shape. It looks like the coloring is pretty much the biggest difference between them. Then right next to those ones, I've got a few Triceratops figures on this shelf too. This first one is the Hammond collection, so it's pretty cool with the color detailing. Look at how worn those horns are on the front. This one in the back here is actually one that I custom colored. So this one is also in that custom painting video that I did a while back. You should check it out. Right next to the Triceratops, I have the Therizinosaurus figures. I've first got this miniature Therizinosaurus with a little bit less detailing, but then I got this huge one that's got the gray claws, the awesome red stripe on its back, and a few action buttons on it as well. Right next to that, I've got one of the stars of the new Jurassic World Dominion movie. These are the Gigantosauruses. This first one is the Sound Surge Gigantosauros, so it's quite a bit smaller, but it has some pretty cool sound effects. And I've also got this larger one that has a slashing and tearing action using the action buttons on its tail. It's really cool. And moving on to the next shelf, I've got a few Indoraptor figures from the Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom movie. There's this one on the far left that's really posable. I've also got the basic one hidden in the back here. It can move a lot less, but it still looks really cool. And then I've got my largest Indoraptor figure that actually has a few action buttons. It can open and close its jaw, and it can swing its arms back and forth too. Right beside those ferocious predators, I've got more carnivores. These are the Carnotaurus figures. I've got Carnotauruses of all shapes and colors. I've got a small baby looking one. I've also got the dark brown, there's some clay red ones. Also got some others in the back over there too. So I have quite a few Carnotaurus figures. And right next to that, I've got some of my largest Indominus Rex figures. This first Indominus Rex here is the Battle Damage Edition. You can see the slashes on its side that you can turn on and off and reveal the red underneath. I've also got one from the original Jurassic World movie right here, and it actually is pretty rubbery, which is interesting. And I've also got the smaller baby looking Indominus Rex and the classic huge figure right here too. On the next level are some of my coolest T-Rex figures, and you can bet that these are super popular. I've got this gray and brown T-Rex with the button on the top of its head to open and close the jaw. There's also this light brown one that's probably my favorite because you can actually control it using the tail to open and close its mouth and to move its neck around too. It's super realistic looking. I've also got the Hammond Collection T-Rex, which is one of the scariest looking T-Rexes I have, I think because of its eyes. They kind of look like they're glowing almost. And right next to that, I've also got the Jurassic World Dominion T-Rex. So this is one of the newest T-Rexes I have, other than this Hammond Collection T-Rex right here. And right next to these dinosaurs, I've got a big group of Spinosaurus figures. These are one of my favorite species, and I've got quite a few different colors. Looks like I've got 3 colors here, and then I've also got the miniature version that's the same color as this one up here. All these figures are really cool, plus they all have the button on the top of their head to open and close the jaw. That's so cool. Right next to the Spinosauruses, we've got some smaller but still ferocious predators. I've got some Baryonyx figures right here. This one is from the Hammond collection, and I've also got a few others that are gray, blue in color. I've got a green one right here in the back as well. Right next to those, I've got some of my favorite Allosaurus figures. This first one is green, it's got some red and white on it. There's also a tan and blue one. And my favorite one is this huge Allosaurus figure that I bought pretty recently. This is the Battle Damage edition. So you can actually open up the Battle Damage on its side and close it back up, which is really cool. Plus, this Allosaurus figure is probably twice the size of these other Allosaurus figures that I have as well. Look at the difference between them. And check it out right next to it. You probably already saw it a little bit. This is a Mosasaurus figure. This figure is ginormous. It has a huge jaw that you can open and close, and you can adjust the flippers as well. Plus, it's got some pretty cool coloring as well. It's dark blue, but it has these white specks all over it, just to give it a bit more texture, and it's super bumpy on the top of its back too. It's got all these ridges all along it, which looks really cool. All right, moving on to the top shelf. Over here, we've got a few Ceratosaurus figures. All these figures are pretty small compared to T-Rexes and stuff like that, but they're still pretty cool, and they're pretty different with their coloring. This one's a super bright red. I've got this brown one, and I've got a gray and red one in the back way over there. But an even bigger predator from Jurassic World is the Scorpius Rex. I've got 2 types on the shelf right here. This first one is the larger figure, and it has 2 action buttons, one for the arms and one for the jaw. And I've also got this smaller one that's like a dark green color. This one doesn't have any action buttons, but it is still super posable. You can move its arms and its elbows and its legs. It's really cool how you can pose it in all different ways. Right next to that, I've got a few Ankylosaurus figures, all with different coloring. Check that out. I've got a clay red one, I've got a brown one, I've got a yellow one, and they all have those super long spikes on the sides, and then the shorter spikes along the top of their shell. And over here, I've got a couple Dimetrodon figures. I bet you recognize these from the Jurassic World Dominion movie. This figure on the right here is actually an extreme battle damage, just like the Indominus Rex that we saw at the bottom. You can turn it on and off, just like that. Really cool. And I love the color difference between these. Although they're pretty similar, I like that it's a little bit different. On the next shelf over here, I've got a big collection of Velociraptors. But this isn't even all of the Velociraptors that I own. I own so many, but some of these are some of the coolest, I think. I've got the Amber Collection Velociraptor Blue right here. I've got a bunch more smaller ones of different colors. There's a brown, a red, some green ones. Here's another Amber Collection Velociraptor, and a smaller version of Velociraptor Blue at the very end. Right next to that, we've got another star of the Jurassic World Dominion movie. These are the Pyroraptors. I've got 2 right here that are pretty similar looking, but this one actually has battle damage on the side that you can turn on and off. It's pretty small, but you can see that red click back and forth, which is a really cool feature. And then there's also this giant Pyroraptor. It's a basic figure, so it can't do too much. Its jaw doesn't open or close or anything like that. But it is a whole lot bigger than these other figures, which is really cool. And finally, over here, we've got some awesome Dilophosaurus figures of a bunch of different colors. A lot of them are green, but you can see on their frills, they've got some red, some of them got yellow, some of them got purple. It's really cool. And of course, I've got this huge Dilophosaurus figure right here. It is also a basic figure, just like the Pyroraptor. So you can't open and close the mouth, but you can move the frills, and you can move the legs and the tail as well.
Welcome back. Today I've got a ton of Allosauruses, Carnotauruses, and Spinosauruses, and I'm going to be putting them all up on this empty space on my display shelves. Let's start with this big old custom colored Spinosaurus figure.
This figure was custom painted a long time ago and has a ton more detail than a lot of the other Spinosaurus figures, and is one of my favorites because of that color coding. Let's grab some of these other Spinosauruses. This is the Camp Cretaceous Spinosaurus with the tan and the red spine and red face. Why don't we put that one right next to the custom colored one, right over here. And here's another giant Spinosaurus figure. I believe this one is the Legacy Collection Spinosaurus, so it's got different coloring than the Camp Cretaceous dinosaur, but it has the same red spine and the red face as well. Look at the color difference with their eyes. Next up, I actually just bought another custom colored Spinosaurus. So let's open it up and see what it looks like. All right, so this is a Hammond Collection Spinosaurus that has been custom colored by someone that I purchased from on eBay. It's still got the red spine, but it's got some cool blue coloring. It's got red along its back. It's got a bunch of white, pretty good detailing. This is really cool, and it's got some darker green eyes as well. So let's put this right in front of these bigger Spinosaurus figures. All right, let's dig into some of these Carnotaurus figures. This first one is one of the darker versions, so it's a brown with black spots on its back, and of course it's got the action button on its tail to open and close its mouth with sound effects too. So let's put this right here next to our Spinosaurus figures. And let's go ahead and grab some of these other Carnotaurus figures too. This is the Jurassic World Dominion Sound Surge Carnotaurus figure. There's a button right at the top that you can use to activate the sound effects. And you can see by putting them side by side the color difference between the two. This one is a lot brighter. And I've even got some more brighter ones in here too. This Carnotaurus is one of my brightest Carnotauruses. It's got a bright yellow and then it fades into the brown on the top. And just like the Carnotaurus on the far right, it also has the button on its tail for the chomping, and you can use its tail to move its head around too. I've still got quite a few Carnotaurus figures in here. This one is a darker red with almost purplish coloring along the top. And it's a bit smaller than these large Carnotaurus figures right here. Just a little bit smaller, and it has a different action. There's a button right at the top of its back for chomping its neck back and forth. It's a little stuck though. Let's see here, I think I've got some more Spinosaurus figures in here. This one is not made by Mattel, it's a model Spinosaurus. So it's got some pretty cool different coloring, but unfortunately you can't move any of the body parts. Let's see if we got a little bit more room up here. We might have to move the Carnotauruses over. Let's see if we can set this Spinosaurus down. Way down here is another Spinosaurus figure, another model, but with entirely different coloring. It's got the red spine, like many of these Spinosaurus figures, but it's got a much darker body. Let's set this down. I think we're gonna have to move the Carnotauruses, so I'm just gonna put this one here for now and move the Carnotauruses down to the next level. Let's see what else. Let's start with the Allosauruses. This is my biggest Allosaurus figure, and it is the extreme battle damage version from Jurassic World Dominion. Let's set this down on the far corner of the lower shelf. I've got my Carnotauruses already set up over here and the Spinosauruses on the next level. Let's go ahead and grab another Allosaurus figure. I've got a gray and yellow one, a whole lot smaller than this Jurassic World Dominion figure, but still pretty cool. It has an action on its back for snapping the jaw. And moving right along, let's grab this Spinosaurus figure. This is an old one, a Jurassic Park Spinosaurus, so it looks way different compared to these new ones over here. Let's go ahead and set it down next to these model Spinosauruses. Right over here, we've got another Allosaurus figure. This one has the tan and two-toned blue coloring. It's got two actions on its back, one for clamping the jaw and one for swinging the arms. Set this down right next to the gray and yellow Allosaurus. Let's see, all right, another Carnotaurus figure. This is a model Carnotaurus figure. It's got some really cool coloring patterns, and it's got a bright orange face, which is unlike any of the Mattel figures. Let's put this Carnotaurus much smaller down right there. Here's another small Carnotaurus, but this one is made by Mattel. This is actually from Jurassic World Dominion. So it's got different coloring compared to the rest of the older Carnotaurus figures, and it's also got a broken horn. Right over here, we've got another old Jurassic Park figure, but this one is an Allosaurus figure. This one actually has battle damage that you can take on and off its body. It's really cool how you can remove them completely. Let's put this down right next to the other Allosaurus figures. Oh, you know what? I've got this huge Carnotaurus figure right here. This is the super colossal Carnotaurus Toro figure. It is ginormous, and you can actually feed it smaller dinosaurs that'll go into its stomach compartment. And I think this dinosaur will have to go on the very top shelf. That's the only place that has space, I think. Check it out, super tall. Here is another Spinosaurus figure. This one has the same coloring as the Legacy Collection Spinosaurus, but is a lot smaller, and it's actually the basic version because you can't open and close its mouth. Looks like we've got some more model Carnotaurus figures. This one has some really cool spikes all along its back and some really interesting coloring as well. Let's set this down right in front of these larger Mattel Carnotauruses. Ooh, check out this Spinosaurus figure. This one is actually posed as if it's swimming through the water, which, if you know, Spinosauruses actually did hunt in the water. So this is pretty cool. Let's put this at the end. Looks like we got a little more space for a few more Spinosaurus figures. This Allosaurus figure is pretty recent. I believe it is a Camp Cretaceous Allosaurus and has the slide lever action for roaring and for moving the mouth. Well, it looks like we're running out of room on the lower shelf. Hopefully we have enough space for the rest of the Allosauruses and Carnotauruses. Here's another model Carnotaurus figure. This one is like a green-yellow coloring. It still has some red detailing along the top, and it is in this really cool roaring pose. This might be the smallest Carnotaurus figure that I have on my shelf so far. Next up is another big old Allosaurus figure. I believe this one has pretty similar coloring to the extreme battle damage Allosaurus, but it has a slide lever action on its back for a bunch of different roars and chomping actions. I think we have enough space for one more Allosaurus right there. Perfect. Looks like we've got a juvenile Spinosaurus model figure right here. This one is by Papo. It's got some pretty cool detailing and coloring. You can still see some green along its spine right there. It's really cool. Now let's put this at the top shelf along with all the other Spinosaurus figures. Here's some figures that I don't show too often on the channel. This is a Snap Squad Spinosaurus by Jurassic World. It's a little itty bitty figure, and it actually has a spring-loaded mouth so you can clamp it onto stuff. But I just want to stand it up right here, so it's right next to all the other figures. Here's another Snap Squad figure, but this one is actually a Carnotaurus, and you can see that even this one has the battle damage right on the front of its face too. All right, looks like there's a little bit of space left. Let's see if we can stand this one up. There we go. And the remaining biggest figure is another Carnotaurus, but this one is gray, and it's almost like a gray-blue coloring. It's got some red right there on its neck, and some interesting bumps and texturing all over its body. All right, let's see where we can set this down. Maybe right here in the corner. All right, all that's left are these teeny tiny figures. These are both Spinosaurus figures from Jurassic World, and they are really small, but they have different coloring, which is pretty cool. You've got this gray and green one, as well as this brown and black Spinosaurus. And the final figure for this shelf build is this Carnotaurus figure from Jurassic World. And I think this actually came from McDonald's, so it was part of a Happy Meal or something. But it is officially part of Jurassic World. So let's put this down next to all the other Carnotaurus figures. Whoops, knocked over a few.
Want to see more dino videos? Click the subscribe button now.